Started there, will you ever feel so like I have cause one do you ever feel a legendary 6 feet on the street, but no one seems to hear a thing? Do you know that there's a song in you to take a chance? Right night, the light, and then it shines just on the time, like all of July. Maybe you'll find the word, don't show what you were. Make it go on, as you shoot across the sky, sky, sky. Maybe you'll find the word, don't let your voice burn. Make it go on, you're gonna be you don't have to feel like a wasted space. Your original cannot be replaced. If you only knew what the future holds, our hurricane becomes a raging so maybe a reason why all the doors are closed, so you could open one that leads you to the perfect road. Like a lightning bolt, you're about to go, and when it's time to go, you just gotta ignite your light, and then it shines. Just on the night, like the 4th of July. You're firework, never show us what you were. As you shoot across the sky, sky, sky. It's always been inside you, and now it's time to let it through. Firework, never show what you were. Make it go as you push it towards the sky, sky, sky. Maybe you're firework, never make it go first. Make it go and you never make it be the brighter than the moon. Be the brighter than the moon. Today seems to be one of those days where they're still coming in. Good morning. Isn't it a great day? Are we glad the humidity's back? Yes, say yes. Yeah. Because the opposite is, cold. We're good. 85 degrees today. I'm loving every minute of that. So let me give you some announcements today. We had a town hall scheduled today. How many of you knew that? This is good because we canceled it. So we canceled it because we're kind of businessed out, aren't we? Yeah, you can say yes, it's okay. I was. So I want to just give you what the board would have done in 20, 30 minutes, and I'm going to do it in 5. No. The reason is because we're not going to take questions. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm just going to give you the facts. Okay? So our first announcement is what, Ms. Dean? Trying to stay in order because. Okay. Announcing our new board, we had officer elections because we have a new board. So Dee Babel, please stand up as Dee, and Renee Romero, our board members of large. Then we have Fran Torres. Fran is beginning to stay on as secretary of the board. Stormy Amagas is the treasurer. Mr. Tony Bennett Joe Keene is vice president, and Jim Hall is president. So that is the new board. So, great news. And we've already had one board meeting, and quite a bit was accomplished. So we're in really good shape. Thank you. New staff members. So we have hired 3 new people, and basically our previous staff administrator did the job of 3 people. So we wanted to, in this time of transition, split them up. So what we've done is Reverend Dixon Bartley, you guys know Reverend? Okay. Reverend, lives right in Wildwood. I haven't been able to find the cash to get her to come here on Sundays. But but it's not uncommon for Unity ministers to not want to hear another Unity minister because all they do is dissect it and say that they would have done it differently. So she's good. So she has agreed to come in once a week and work with us on our deposits and making sure all the money properly gets into the bank. So we're going to do that on a temporary basis until we figure out what we want to do permanently. So she's willing to step forward to do that. And Drew, Miss Drew Home, Miss Drew is going to be building custodian. And all I ask her to do with Drew is that you don't tell her anything's wrong. We only tell her how nice it looks. And then you send me an email if there's something that needs to be addressed. Okay, and we'll take care of it because we really didn't have the order of how to do this, so it's a work in progress, and I already feel the difference as well, so it's all good. And Marsha Wolf, where are you? Miss Marsha, stand up. Marsha has agreed to step in as our administrator, so she's going to be starting full-time in March, beginning of March, next week, or this week or something. And she's been in training with Angela Love. We love Angela, but Angela's got other things that she's really tied up in. So Marsha's agreed to step in. And I got to tell you, it's going very, very well. So the transition will be seamless to you guys. You guys haven't noticed anything at all, which is a really good sign. So again, be gentle with Marsha as we all figure out how to do it in a way that works perfectly. So thank you, all 3 of you, for joining us. And the next one, Pat Bennett Black. That'd be this guy. So last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, we mentioned about a plaque and dedicating the community room to the Pat Bennett community room. So here is the plaque for anybody who would like to see it. I'm going to have an usher take it from me and put it in the back of the room. Please feel free to look at it. This is going to be hung in the community room probably this week. And then we have a sign coming up to actually label the room the Pat Bennett room. So you might hear some people call it the community room, some people might call it that Bennett room, but either way, we really only have 2 rooms here, so I think we're good. So, it's either the sanctuary or the other room. So it's all good. So we'll go from there. So, and of course, Pat is home taking care of herself, so feel free to reach out, send her a card, and congratulate her, and just say hi. I'm sure she'll be very much like that. And the next one. Spirit groups update. How many are in spirit groups? Raise your hands high, like you're excited. Yeah. There's 12 individuals who raised their hand and said that they wanted to be spirit group leaders. But before we wanted them to sign on, we wanted them to know what they were getting into. Right? Makes sense. So we're in the process of doing that. It's a 10-week program. We're right in the middle of it. We've done 5 weeks. We're about to hit our 6th week. And what happens to you is that when they're complete with their 10 weeks, they will raise their hand again and say, yeah, now that I know what you want and what's expected, I'm going to go ahead and be a leader. And so at that point, probably in 2-3 weeks, we will start addressing it here on Sundays about signing up for a spirit group. So you're going to be hearing a little bit more about that. Spirit groups is not a book club. It is not what? It's not. Am I right, leaders? Yeah, it's not. It's so much more. Although there's a book involved. So it's so much more than that. You're going to learn a lot more about it. And it is one of the major steps that a ministry takes to get into mission-centric.
So it's one of the major steps for that process. So again, you'll hear more about that in the upcoming weeks. And I would encourage you to read the stuff that you might get through email, through your e-blast. Take a look at it, because it's very, very effective. What's the objective of Mission Centric Big Picture? It's this, that no matter who's standing here, it doesn't matter, they deliver a good message, and if they're not here the next week, you don't miss it. Someone else will be here. Mission Centric isn't about the person that's running the church, it's about the church running through the mission. And so this person doesn't become loved and idolized and put on a pedestal. Instead, we're all working together for the same cause, which is to fulfill our purpose. In big picture, we each fulfill our purpose by seeking out the guidance and wisdom of God within. That's the big picture. So that's the objective, and then we're moving in that direction. Spirit group lends itself to receive a spiritual message on purpose in a small group environment. And so that this person isn't the one that's always guiding you with the truth message, but small group ministry does it. So that's the short version of it. So I hope you'll keep your ears and eyes open for that. And then I think the board training, we had our first board training this past Friday. We had 12 people. You know, isn't that funny that it's 12? We have 12 spiritual leaders training. We have 12 people that showed up. You know, what does the number 12 mean? It means total spiritual completion. So we're on the right track. Everything's going as ordered. We got to look at a video, a board training video done by Dr. Gary Simmons. Was done to talk a little bit about the evaluation process. And we're going to do a second training on how to read a financial statement, how to read the finances of the church, so that we train more and more people within the ministry on how to read that stuff. So you'll notice a little bit different. On the wall outside the ladies' room, in the past, you've seen oodles of paperwork on the finances. So we know that you guys diligently every week go and look at that sheet of paper and want to know everything that's going on. And so to facilitate that, we've summarized 2 sheets of paper. How much came in? How much went out? How much is in the dome? What's our mortgage? What do we got left? Those are the things that are important to you. So if you want to look at that next week, you'll see our current statement go up. It's not up right now, but it will be up next week. Feel free to look at that. You'll have a pretty good idea of what's happening in the ministry. So we thought we'd keep it simple so more can learn from it, rather than this conglomerate of a lot of stuff. Make sense? So anytime you go, hey, what's going on? There you have it, okay? So one of the other objectives of Mission Centric, now imagine this for just a second, that the love offering on Sunday is taken up, right? Like we do now. And the money that's collected at that love offering goes to pay for special projects outside the community. Because all the rest of the money to fund the business of church happens through online giving. Wow. 100% funded by online giving. We have a little ways to go there. So when you hear about tithing, take a look at it. Take a look at it, because then when you come to church, you're not getting all dressed up and doing your due diligence, and then you realize you forgot your checkbook. You will have already given through online giving. So now you're coming to church with an upliftment. It's not about the money. It becomes the way that you continue to facilitate making sure that this ministry is here for others to get such good rewards that you've gotten. So that's coming down the pike as well. So when you see tithing, Mr. Stormy board member is really, he's into that tithing. So if you want to know how to put an app on your phone, I mean, it is so simple. I mean, literally, you go to the app, you download the app, and you put your name in, and it says how much you want to give and where. Boom, boom, it's done. I mean, we're talking, once you set it up, 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And that's if you don't know how to do it. So it's really good stuff. I would encourage you to take a look at it. There's some flyers at the back of the church, so to take a look at that. I think that might be it. I hope so. Oh, the Q process. How many of you have done the Q process? Either through Steve or through myself? Steve can, yeah. We have about 20% of our congregation has taken the Q book. We have about 30 people, 30 plus people who have done the Q process work. And the Q process is our way of facilitating triggers within us. We're human beings and we get triggered by stuff that doesn't go our way, right? The moment we don't get what we want, something happens to us. You know, however it's unfolded in your life. So the Q process gives us a window with which to respond differently than we always have, which is to blame, which is to outcast, which is to cause anger within ourselves. So the Q process moves the congregation into a place of total forgiveness and walking through life without the anger and the angst of life. Is it 100% foolproof? No, you have to work it. You have to be willing to do the program. So we'll be offering it again in August, for anybody who wants to take it. And this will be continuing. It's another window with which Mission Centric takes place. Because now you're not angry with each other. For whatever. Doesn't matter whether it's just that you didn't get the hug when you walked in, or that your favorite parking spot was taken, and whoever was parking in my spot, please move your car, because that's my spot. Right? And we do these things, and we're on our way to church. So the Q process gives us that chance with which to move through that. So our goal is to have 75% of our members working the Q work within 3 years. And we're in year 1 with 20%. Really, very well, right on target. We're doing a good job with it. God, I hope that's it. Mission Centric, we're moving through this. I want you to, we're going to do this in the e-news this week. So those of you that don't, look, I encourage you to sign up for Dr. Reverend Gary Simmons' blog, where he talks all about Mission Centric, as well as his YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Gary Simmons, and his name is going to come up, and subscribe, and you get an email every time he does anything on a video. And he is the guru on Mission Central. You want to know what we're doing? You want to know a little bit more, or you want to be bored to death? Go there. Because his videos are great. I mean, he's got some good stuff, and he's making it work. So he's kind of the model that we're going to be following. And Dr. Gary Simmons has agreed to come to our next board meeting via Zoom on the 20th to talk more about Mission Centric and see what our next path is. Make sense? Am I done? Please, God. Even I'm tired. One more. No. And with that, we invite Steve to light our Christ candle. Surely the presence of our God is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see holy on each face. Surely the presence of our God is in this place. So let us just assume the position, both feet on the ground, our backs comfortably up against the back of the chair. Allow the chair to support us. For all that we need is in this room. And so we gently close our eyes and open our palms. And we just know that the sweet Spirit of God, that indwelling presence within each one of us is present. And we feel that presence because surely the presence of God is here, right now. But we no longer need to look outside of ourselves for this deep indwelling Spirit, for it is the very heartbeat, the very breath we have. And as we breathe in the very essence of God within us, we feel that presence filling us with love, compassion, joy, inclusivity. For we are a body of beautiful God-centered individuals expressing ourselves as a child of a loving, caring God. And so for this brief moment together, this brief hour, we align ourselves with that knowingness that we are all brothers and sisters in God. So we allow ourselves to be open and receptive to all that awaits us this day. For truly, God is present. And so for this truth and this knowingness, we together respond with an I am. Amen. A.M.
I've been wandering in this blind spot for so long, till every turn I take seems to be the wrong one. Everywhere I look I see endless possibilities. Lord, all I need is just a little faith. Just a little faith when the storms of life are blowing. Just a little faith will get you where you're going. When you're inspired by the dreams inside your mind, but in your life they seem so hard to find. You can make them all again. Just hold that picture loud and clear. All you need to have is just a little faith. Just a little faith when the storms of life are blowing. Just a little faith gets you where you're going. Just a little faith is all it takes to get your feet back in the place. It's all you'll ever need. Ask and know that you'll receive. Act as if you do believe. Don't give down a chance to call. You can really have it all. Just a little faith when the storms of life are blowing. Just a little faith can get you where you're going. Just a little faith when the storms of life are blowing. Just a little faith will get you where you're going. Just a little faith. Just a little faith.
Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center. My name is George Neal. This is our spiritual home. We welcome you all here today. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you are new today, please raise your hand now so that we may give you a blessing. Anyone? We love you.
We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold Christ as you.
Now, please join us for Share a Dish Sunday for a light lunch in the community room right after the service today. But now it's time for our community greeting of each other. Hugs or handshakes are a welcoming energy Hector will play some music when it's a signal to time to come and sit down again, but in the meantime, enjoy. Yes, I know, it is such a hard feeling, but you have to sit down eventually. Thank you. Well, I have some announcements. I guess this is announcement Sunday. Jukebox Bingo is a memory-filled night of music. It's not your ordinary bingo. People sing along with song clips and watch their specially designed cards to see if they're a winner. Radio personality and MC Rick Mitchell guides you through the night. It's 6 to 8 p.m. Friday night, March 8th, in the community room. Well, we're on a roll. The big drum filled with tickets could result in you receiving a free ticket on April 7th drawing. Or you could be the big prize winner of the night of the event at Savannah Center, April 29th. So join the crowd to reach our goal of 300 tickets. It provides a scholarship to a worthy student. Tickets are on sale. They're on sale. The team could also use some help in various capacities. Talk to Sue Ashley or for Dee Babel to be part of this exciting event. Every Wednesday at noon, our prayer service is followed by a meditation. Join in here in the sanctuary for a focused, calming experience. The movie, Who Moved My Cheese, is the basis for a program to be held March 15th, Friday night, and March 16th, Saturday morning. It isn't a cooking class, but a metaphor for percolating the sacred cows in our midst. Sign up in the community room. Now, if you are a Unity Spiritual Center congregant and have published a book you would like our spiritual community to know about, it's your turn. If you wrote a memoir, a cookbook, a children's books, or poetry, we want to see them all. Contact Steve Camp to express your interest and find out particulars for the upcoming event. Some parents have to decide whether to pay rent or buy essentials for their child. We can help with those decisions. The Unity Women's Group is asking you to give a loving grandparent to the Children's Home Society. A shopping list of needed items is in the bassinet at the back of the sanctuary, or Judy Latham can give you one on your way out today. Please return them unwrapped before the end of March. The fifth Sunday of the month after church, soup is provided. To share your soup, making talents, come to a meeting in the community room tomorrow at 2 to learn how you can help. Our prayer chaplain today is Steve Camp.
Good morning. Will our prayer chaplains in sacred service today please stand? They have purple stoles on and will be at the front of the service to pray with you after the service. If you prefer private prayer, please request it, and this prayer room will be used as one on the side. The daily word for today is guidance. The scripture is from Psalm 32. I will instruct you and teach you the way you should go. I will counsel you with my eyes upon you. Today I consider the path that has brought me to this moment. I now see that seemingly insurmountable obstacles held rich new opportunities to allow my Christ self to guide my every choice. Divine guidance is never withheld and is more rewarding than any scenario my mortal mind might envision. Just as I encourage others to actively seek enlightenment from their inner source, I remind myself to do the same. Spiritual guidance is readily available to me and to all creation through a divine connection. Through spirit within, my perspective changes and the possibilities become reality. Please join me in saying the affirmation. I have faith that I am divinely guided. Join me in saying the affirmation. The spiritual power for February is strength. This reflects our ability to endure, stay the course, and persevere. the affirmation.
I gain strength and use it to take a course, no matter the outer circumstances.
And now let's close our eyes as we focus our attention on the prayer box. And so we just take a couple of deep breaths, and slip into that sacred space where we all connect with that one divine presence that is within each and every one of us. And we focus that energy of love towards this prayer box and towards the names of the people that are in it. We join them in the knowing of this simple truth. We are spiritual beings, and all that we need is already there for us. As we move into that flow of divine love and allow ourselves to see and know the truth that we are each spiritual beings, whole, perfect, and guided from within. And as each of us follows that guidance, we come to know the truth of ourselves. And for the knowledge of these truths, we say, thank you, Holy Spirit, thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. And our meditation song today is I Send My Love.
I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my joy over the mountains. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. And it returns to me.
So let us stay in this state of calmness and oneness with each other as we give ourselves permission to listen to the calling of God, because this is our time to listen. Every word out of our mouth is a prayer, and now we silently listen to that still small voice, knowing that that still small voice is tapping on our consciousness and saying, maybe it's me. Listen. Let me guide you. Let me offer the answer to your prayers. So we quiet our mind with the busyness and just allow ourselves to be calm, to be at peace with ourselves, and to put aside anything that is troubling us, For God already knows the needs of our heart. So we ever so gently allow that still small voice to be part of our clarity, part of our wisdom, part of our discernment. Because we know that God has already gone before us to pave the way, to clear the obstacles, to make our path forward smooth and effortlessly. So our job is ever so simple, to allow our inner ear to hear that guidance, and to not so much as question, but to just know that that guidance from God is the gift. And that gift is measured by our feet taking a forward motion as we follow that guidance. Or we can put aside our fear of where we are headed, because we know with God there is no fear. There is love. There is purpose. There is joy. There is the knowingness that where we are going is to our highest and possible good. So we follow that guidance and we trust. And we let go of the concern of where it is leading, but rather we know it leads to a further expression that we are children of a loving, caring God. A God that permeates every part of our being. A God that resides in everything and everyone. So we put aside our concerns and just go forward, trusting this guidance. So I ask you to be silent for a short pause as we give our consciousness a chance to hear that guidance from within. And we just be. So we return ourselves to this place of now, and we ever so gently open our eyes and become aware of the room, and we silently affirm, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
Some say love is a higher power. Some say love is all we need. But I see love is a formless energy flows invisibly and secretly through everything, that flows invisibly and secretly through everything. How I wish my eyes could see the love, the energy that shines the stars and moves the seas. How I wish my eyes could see. Some say God is a higher power, and somehow God has wants and needs. I say God is not some entity that grants impunity for those it deems most worthy. Impunity for those it deems most worthy. How I wish my eyes could see the love, the energy that shines the stars and moves the seas. How I wish my eyes could see. Do you believe in a life from which love flows? Do you really believe I would send you here on your own, and it would leave you here all alone? Are we ever all alone? How I wish my eyes could see the love, the light, the energy that shines the stars and moves the seas. How I wish my eyes could see. How I wish my eyes could see the love, the light, the energy that moves through you and me and everything. How I wish my eyes could see. How I wish my eyes could see. How I wish my eyes could see.
So I'm on a trip through John. So this is my third week with John, and I like John. John's a good guy. I'm in chapter 4, and some of you are very familiar with this. In this particular passage, chapter 4, John 1 through 26, can really be broken down into two talks, but I went, let's go for it, so I'm going to do it all at once. So bear with me. And you guys are familiar with this. It's Jesus and the woman of Samaria. Now, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard Jesus is making and baptizing more disciples than John, although it was not Jesus himself but his disciples who were baptizing, he left Judea and started back to Galilee. But he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his sons Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well, and it was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying this to you, to give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it? Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give you, because in them a spring of water gushes up to eternal life. The woman said to her, Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water. Jesus said to her, Go call your husband and come back. The woman answered him, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, You are right in saying you have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What have you said is true? The woman said to him, Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem. Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. For salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us. Jesus said to her, I am he, the one who is speaking to you. A lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff. So I'm going to keep it simple. Most importantly, the first half of this is the definition of grace. No one wanted to be in the company of this woman. She's living in sin. Not really. But in those times, if you were not married, it was an adulteress. Now, I don't blame her for not marrying that 6th guy. You know what I mean? Isn't 5 enough? Right? So here she is, acknowledging that I'm not married. But the point being is that she is a Samaritan, she's not Jewish, and she's living in an unauthorized marriage. So she's got it all against her. The Jews don't want any part of her because she's a Samaritan. And the Samaritans don't want any part of her because she's living with a man that she's not married to. So she's at the well all by herself because at the noon hour, all the women in the community have already gotten their water for the day. She's not to go there while others are there. Hence, she's by herself. And this process is the grace, because through grace, we show mercy and we don't judge on what one is or is not. And that's our definition of inclusivity. But we find it easy to judge others because they don't agree with us or they're doing something that we don't approve of. But Jesus saw none of that. He had no qualms with sitting at that well and asking her for a cup. Now she gets a little baffled because he doesn't have a bucket with which to draw from. And she knows that she can't use her bucket because that would be committing a sin according to the Jews. You see, so Jesus says, look, it doesn't matter whether you have a bucket or not. I have the living water that you thirst for. She changes the subject and says, are you saying you're better than Jacob, who put this well here? And how many were served by that well? He says, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Whether Jacob put it here or not, that's what you believed. And so many of us believe what we're told rather than what we know. And so he explains further that, look, you believe in a God that you've been told to believe in, but I'm asking you to believe in a God that you can't see and you don't understand and still believe. Because if you believe in that indwelling God, you will never thirst again. That's the living water. But before we can get to that living water, we have to put aside our judgments. We have to put aside our better than, or I don't agree with, or you're doing what I don't think you should do, all of that stuff. And easier said than done, isn't it? But when we do that action, when we include another human being in our life, no matter what outer circumstances profess, we no longer hunger for the understanding of God because we get it. how good it feels when we take that step and we take that action. Because when we don't do it, there's a part of us in the back of our head goes, could have done better there. That's assuming we're conscious of what we've done. Many of us are not conscious of how we reject others. We just go about the business and we don't realize it, of how we've done it. But when we are conscious, we make different choices, right? And the whole point of being here on Sundays is to become more conscious of what we do and how it isn't living in accordance with the thirst of that indwelling Christ. Now, the other half of the story gets a little bit more interesting. Now, remember, these are the Samaritans, right? And what is the Good Samaritan today to us? Helping someone in need. It's the Grace Act. See, when we're acting as a Good Samaritan, are we not withholding our judgment? We just give freely because we see the need and we take care of it. With no thought of a reward, we just go for it. We see it, we handle it. And that's what Jesus has done. He's at the well, he sees the need within her, and he answers her need. Even if she's not fully aware of it. He answers the need. So, interesting that Jacob, it's the Jacob well. History cannot prove where this well really was, but John figured out that this would have been a good place for one. Because when you look at the terrain, it's probably not far off of where Jacob had this well. But Jacob represents the intellect, metaphysically. Esau, his brother, represents the physical. And the intellect and physical thirst, hence the well. Because the consciousness, neither one of them represents spiritual awareness. Knowledge will not quench our thirst. So you can read all the books you want, and please do read those books. And seek out the guidance and wisdom from others. But as we gather that data, none of it matters until we do something about it. And for some of us, that thing that we do that can't be measured is we change the way we think. We change our consciousness just a little bit. And we can't measure that, can we? We wish we could. Wouldn't that be cool? We have this barometer that says, this is Christ and this is the human side, and then we see this needle go, closer and closer to, isn't there? But we know when we're doing the right thing and how that needle does move. But we can't express that to another human being because they don't get it. So the Good Samaritan, what makes a Good Samaritan is that you do the deed without telling anybody. That could be fun, huh? No accolades, only you know that you did the right thing at that moment. And you follow that inner guidance without judging, without condemning, without thinking too much about it. You just went for it. And how good that feels inside. So the other half of the story is about this open and receptivity part. Because she clearly is showing that she's receptive. She wants to understand more about this. Even if her consciousness keeps changing the subject. She still wants to know. And so we've got 5 husbands. Right? What does 5 represent? Thank you. It was Dave. Cover 5 senses. That's what 5 represents. But she's on her way to her 6th. What's that all about? Intuition. The 6th sense. But guess what? She's not married to him. So it's just this passing thought within her. She hasn't committed the deed yet to allow that 6th sense to kick in. But guess what? The 6th sense is still something outside of ourselves. Because when we have a 6th sense, we have this intuitive nature about things around us. We might even be able to bend spoons and change the flow of water with the 6th sense. Or we might be able to speak to people that are not in the physical form anymore with the 6th sense. That's all well and good, but it is not the Christ consciousness that's drawing that. It's still outside of ourselves that we're using the tool, because what good is it? How does it further our experience of God and becoming more Christ consciousness by bending a spoon? It's a nice act. It's a nice thing to be able to do, but it doesn't move us closer to God. So it is still sitting in the intellect, and the fact of our six senses is guiding us rather than moving into the spiritual sense. The inner eye, the eye that sees all and brings us closer to God. Because we have that choice, we have to be on purpose. And what is our purpose? That of seeking a full, conscious oneness with God. That's what each of us are here to do. We all have different paths to get there. But it's to seek the full consciousness with our oneness with God. You see, because we have lived in a life of separation of God through our five senses. It separates us. We see the outer, we see all that it does, but it's really the within that causes us to make the shift. You know, we need the five senses to determine that that water's hot or that that car's coming at us. We need those things to move through our human experience. But the Christ consciousness within us, we don't need that. We don't need any of that. We need only the awareness that our job is to connect with that Christness within us, to create that oneness with God. That's our job. And so anything that is not leading in that direction is a depletion of energy, is a depletion of our purpose, and it takes us further away from God. Because we've been taught a separation from God. God is up there. God is any place but within us. So intellectually, we've been told that God resides within us. God is in our neighbors. God is in everything. We got it intellectually, but we still feel separated. We still have this casing around us that says, I'm the exception. God doesn't love me as much as you. And we separate ourselves. It's not the truth of us, but we intellectually believe it. And we start to model and do things that continue the separation sense of God. When the truth is there is no separation from God. But when we experience the human self and we start to thirst for knowledge, we forget where to start. What to do about that thirst. So we seek out other things to fulfill that thirst. Being too busy, taking a job that makes us a workaholic, being mindful of all the pennies and dimes that we have. We detract ourselves from that oneness with God. And it's so easy to do because we've been doing it our whole lives. In fact, for most of us, we were taught that in order to be a successful student and a citizen of this United States, we're supposed to work. We're supposed to be stewards of our environment and create our own good. All well and good, right? But it's still outside. Can we do those things and still have an inner presence of God? Yes. But we spend so much of our time managing the five senses that we lose sight of what we're really here for. Wouldn't it be nice if we use this inner consciousness to forgive, to avoid hate and its negative consequences? See, that's living the Christ light. That's representing and not being judgmental of the other folks around us. But boy, are we quick to condemn. You know what the news has been about all this week. Are we quick to condemn a human being that might be innocent? Might be. But either way, there's a problem, isn't there? And we have to remember to not judge, to be part of the circle of connectivity and pray for the right, perfect outcome rather than the chatter. Because isn't that parking lot talk? When we sit and chatter about somebody else's negative circumstances. It's a trying time for a person to go through that. And wouldn't it be nice if we're the good Samaritan that reaches out to that person through our prayer and our thoughts and our consciousness? Rather than, he coulda, shoulda, woulda, why aren't they? All that stuff. So it's important for us to remember that we need the senses. We need them to function. But we thirst for more than the physical senses. We thirst for more than knowledge. We thirst for an experience, an expression of that Christ within us. That's what we thirst for. And so let us not pick up the cup of humanness, but let us pick up the cup of God. The connectivity, that oneness. Please, God, use my judgment wisely and not on others. Forgive me, Father, for what I have said. That's not really what I want for that individual. Shift, shift, and go back into how you would want to be treated. You wouldn't want to be condemned. We live in a society that condemns way before the trial even happens. Let's not do that. Let's stand back and say, there's an issue here. Let's pray for complete wholeness, complete clarity, and not judge. And then our thirst is quenched when we do the right thing. When we choose to drink from Jacob's well to feed our human self, but then we thirst and we drink from the well of the Christ consciousness within us, which infills us, and we no longer need the outer senses as much. So we go within to seek that out, because I have to have homework for you. We have to have this in practice, right? Because otherwise it's just thoughts. It's like, yay, great, Mo did a great talk. I can't remember what she said, but I felt good while I was doing it. And I love that. But Unity teaches we must put our feet in action. We must demonstrate the truth and the knowledge that you've received, because we need to practice it and practice it so that it becomes second nature. When you see that Samaritan on the side of the road, you know exactly what to do, whatever that might look like, with no hesitations. So what part of your thirst are you filling with the five senses rather than the Christ consciousness? Now, how do we put that in action? I heard the question, thank you. That's a great homework assignment, Mo, but how do I do that? What's the physical action that would allow me to feel and see that? And only you know the answer. Because I know that it's true for me and it's not true for you. We're all on different planes of our consciousness, right? And so part of that consciousness is recognizing that I can do it differently, however that is. And so we look within before responding. That's one way to do it. That pause moment. When we are about to condemn and judge somebody, and we pause. Wait a second. I'm not the one that should condemn or judge. I'm the one that represents the Christ consciousness. So let me exude that instead of the other side. Because our human senses guides us and moves us through this experience, but it is the Christ consciousness that caused the evolution of our being. And that's what we want more of. Go within for the truth before our mouths speak. Hear with the Christ consciousness rather than a human consciousness. Pause before those words come out. Change your mind and say, let me do a little prayer right here. That everything works out well. That the truth be revealed and all is perfect in my world. Reaffirm it. Thirst your consciousness and strive to be there rather than at the well, wanting a cup. Fill your thirst with the consciousness of Christ, because you are absolutely connected to that inner self. We just forget. So reconnect with that, and be part of the change within you that people see. Then it becomes measurable. So your homework is just pause. Pause before the faculty of judgment kicks in. Pause before we condemn. Pause before we think we know what's best for another human being. We have no idea. We don't even know what's best for ourselves, let alone another person. So seek out that consciousness that allows us to move forward with our true purpose. Our true purpose, to be connected always in consciousness and in our spiritual self with God. Because when we get to that place, and we have moments of it, don't we? We have moments of clarity, and we go, yeah, we know exactly what we're supposed to do. Wouldn't it be nice if we just moved that up a notch? You know, maybe we have it 2%. Our lives would be drastically different if we had 3%. It changes measurably. So I invite you to pause. To pause when it comes to another human being. To recognize that we are all striving to drink the Christ consciousness, however it unveils. So your real homework is every time you drink a glass of water, or any of your other favorite beverages, We say, thank you, God, for knowing the difference between thirsting and hunger for the Christ consciousness. Do that. I bless you on your journey, and let's drink up.
This is the time when we get to take our gifts in our hands. And let's take the gift and send joy and love into our gifts so that they can go out to the world and repeat the prayer. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. Oh, Heavenly Spirit, rich in love upon heaven, we worship Thee, we praise Thy holy name. Teach us, Thy children, evermore to love Thee. Thy will be done in earth as heaven today. Oh, give us grace and evermore to love Thee. Thy will be done in earth as heaven today. Oh, give us grace to meet the coming morrow. Forgive our errors as others we forgive. Thou lead us not, Thy children, in temptation, and from all error Thou deliverest us. Thine is the kingdom, Thine the power and glory, world without end, forevermore. Amen. And if you repeat the blessing. Thank you, Spirit, for the gifts that we have received today to be sent forth out into the world. May we realize above all else that God has provided the most minute needs of our daily lives. Please stand. Let's do it with the peace sign.
Thank you, Gina. Really appreciate it.